Hello and welcome to the AT Center at TCNJ. This webinar series is facilitated by the Inclusive 365 team and focuses on inclusive practices. The Inclusive 365 team specializes in helping organizations create more inclusive educational environments. They are known for the book Inclusive Learning 365, EdTech Strategies for Every Day of the Year, and provide services to organizations such as book studies, webinars, and consultation to help educators develop and implement inclusive strategies. The team consists of 4 professionals: Christopher Bugaj, Karen Janowski, Beth Poss, and Mike Marotta. Join them as they introduce practical strategies you can implement immediately in your environment to promote inclusive practices. This is Module 7, Inclusive Strategies for Social Emotional Learning. These webinars are made possible through our partnership with the New Jersey Department of Education, Office of Special Education. The statements issued by guest presenters do not reflect the stance of the NJDOE OSE. Please use your professional judgment when implementing strategies and resources within your practice. Let's listen to the Inclusive 365 team.
Hello, everyone. Thank you for joining us again, hopefully. We are back for another Inclusive Learning 365, and today we are discussing social emotional learning. We are the I365 team of Chris Bugaj, Beth Poss, Karen Janowski, and Mike Marotta, but it is Chris and myself, Beth, that are coming to you today. If you want to grab the slide deck, and you absolutely want to grab the slide deck because there are lots of links and resources embedded in the slide deck, you can grab it with that QR code right there on the screen. So we'll give you, well, you know what, you're watching this recorded, so you can pause it right now and simply grab that QR code. Right? We come to you from up and down the I-95 corridor, essentially, from Boston down to Virginia. And I don't think we need to add anything else about that, do we?
Maybe just a quick, who are you, Beth? And I'll say who I am.
Who am I? I'm Beth Poss. I'm coming to you at this moment from Maryland. And I am, I like to refer to myself as an inclusion facilitator. My full-time day job is I work for Lesson Picks. I am a speech language pathologist, and I'm super excited to be here to share resources with you again as one of the co-authors of the book Inclusive Learning 365, EdTech Strategies for Every Day of the Year.
And my name is Chris Bugaj, just across the Potomac River from Beth in Northern Virginia. I am the Assistive Technology Specialist for Loudoun County Public Schools. That's my day job. But that Assistive Technology Specialist is not how I think of myself. Just like Beth said, an inclusive facilitator, I think of that too, like an inclusive design facilitator, working with educators to help them design awesome inclusive experiences for everyone. And I also, Beth and I are the two of the 4 of us that have speech backgrounds. So we're both veteran speech language pathologists. How's that, Beth?
How's that? That's better than saying that we're old, right, Chris?
Yeah.
It's all right. I'm older than he is. It's all good. Okay. So go ahead, Chris.
Yeah, you mentioned the book. Well, I'll mention the card deck real quick. The card deck is sort of the new thing that came out in June of 2025. And what it is they're about the size of playing cards. Beth's holding it up right now. And you see that they are, there's like 50 cards in there. Most of them are specific strategies, but then there's a couple other like question cards to help you use those. We've seen people use these as in PD sessions where they ask a question and then they reflect on that question and then look at some of the strategies that might help design these inclusive experiences for the learners they support.
And if you like all the stuff that we're talking about here today, we hope you'll check out the book or the cards.
Beth, I don't know about you, but was really nervous to do this video today. Like I started to sweat and I started to get anxious and started pulling my collar a little bit. And then I was like, oh, wait, I'll use one of the strategies that we're going to talk about to regulate myself and realize, wait, I'm not doing this alone. I've got one of my bestest friends from years and years doing this with me. I'm not alone. We can do this together. And then I realized, okay. And so I used a self-calming, self-soothing strategy of self-visualizing that I'm not going to be alone to get past that anxiety.
I love that, Chris. I love that. I actually was a little nervous about this today too, but again, I'm with one of my besties and I thought the same thing. I thought exactly the same thing. I'm doing this by myself. All right. This is part of a 9-part series. We hope that you have at least watched the very first part, Inclusive Mindset. Otherwise, feel free to watch these in any order that you would like, whatever your needs for yourself or in your classroom or in whatever educational setting that you are in right now to find it useful. And again, today our focus is on social emotional learning, also known as SEL. So first of all, what is social emotional learning? I actually have a slide with a link to a really great resource that goes into much more detail about this later. But essentially, social emotional learning is across these different areas: self-awareness of your emotions and of what emotions are, self-management of your emotions. And I do want to say self-awareness and self-management are almost always preceded by co-awareness and co-management. We don't expect kids to do this from the get-go on their own. It also involves social awareness, so the awareness of what's happening with the around us and the emotional state of those around us. It's relationship skills, and then it's responsible decision making. And so the strategies that we're going to talk about today are really grounded in these areas that make up social emotional learning.
Beth, just to comment on that for a second, I feel like something you hit on, and it's probably going to be a theme throughout this next whole, video, is that at least when I was in school, this was not taught with any sort of intentionality to me. It's sort of like, hey, Chris, figure it out. You got a test you're anxious about? I don't know. The strategy I was told is we all have to figure it out. There was no sort of specific strategies to say, like breathe or think about your friends or visualize things. It was all just sort of haphazard. And I feel like a message today is, but there's research behind this, and there's intentionality that we can have to help people better regulate and manage their this. To me, SEL and executive functioning have the Venn diagram. There's a little bit of a crossover there. Like I think self-management could have easily been in executive functioning as well. But the point is helping kids learn these strategies by teaching them intentionally rather than just throw them to the wind and figure it out.
100%. And also, just for those of you that may be watching this from a state or a district that has been told that social emotional learning is not a part of what happens in school from a curriculum standpoint or what is allowed to be taught. These are things that you can infuse and you can talk about them as relationship building, right? As regulation skills, all of those. So don't be put off by the term social emotional learning. These truly are skills that can be taught and infused into all sorts of different content that you are working on. All right, identifying and labeling emotions. And this is actually where I had the little graphic that I wanted to mention. So one of the first steps in being able to develop self-awareness and understanding emotions that you may be having or that other people may be having is being able to identify and label emotions. And I don't just mean an emotion card that somebody holds up and says, is this person happy or is this person sad? It's by doing some real work in being able to develop an understanding of how you might feel in certain situations and how you might be able to label that emotion. This all leads into promoting self-regulation. It helps us develop an emotional vocabulary because there's so much more than happy, sad, mad, right? There's so much more than that, the nuances of the vocabulary that we can use. And it also helps develop metacognitive skills around the idea of thinking about what you're feeling, being able to put a label on it, and thinking about those causes of it. I do have a graphic right here. This is from a group called Castle, and it's linked in, this is linked in the presentation. So if you haven't already captured it, go back to that, pause, rewind, go back to that very first slide that we showed with the QR code on it to get that link. It really goes into great detail about these different areas of social emotional learning. And you can click on that self-awareness link that's within that to get some more information on being able to understand the reasons why identifying and labeling emotions are a part of the work that we do. But let's talk about some resources that we can use to help us with this. So you're seeing a graphic right here where it's talking about high energy. It's in 4 quadrants: high energy, unpleasant, high energy, pleasant, low energy, unpleasant, and low energy, pleasant. There's a lot of different curriculum and resources out there that will talk about assigning colors with emotion, talking about how we might grade things down. But this particular graphic is from a tool called How We Feel. If you used to use a tool called the Mood Meter, which is actually the tool that's listed in our book, that has evolved and it is now called How We Feel. And it is a tool to really dig down. We can't always label the emotion right away, but this is a tool that allows you to dig down into, gosh, I have a lot of energy, but I don't feel good about it. Let me go to that red area and then be able to see, well, how far out to the left or to the right or to the top or to the bottom within that set of emotions that I'm feeling. And then it's going to provide labels for lots of different emotions that might fall under each of those different quadrants. Now, there's a lot of other tools out there as well that really allow you to talk about emotions. I would definitely say the How We Feel tool is not the tool probably that you're going to use with preschoolers. If you're working with preschoolers, you might go to the Guess the Feeling game, which is a Daniel the Tiger resource from PBS that puts it right down at that early childhood level for being able to talk about emotions. Storyboard That is a great tool for loads of things, but one of the things that it has in there are resources that really show the ability to set different emotions on faces of characters that you might put together. And Chris, I'll let you talk for just a second about Moment AR
So what Moment AR is the other picture there on the slide. And what that is there's a tool called the Merge Cube. Did you look, Beth, like do you have one right near you, a Merge Cube?
I do not have a Merge Cube right near
Hold
me.
on, wait, everybody, I do.
Chris, of course, would have a Merge Cube right near him.
Okay, here it is. I'm back, everybody. So this is a Merge Cube. You can see it has these sort of funky codes on all the sides. It's sort of squishy. You can buy this. This is commercial, but you can also get a free version, a PDF that they have, and you can print it and fold it yourself, and it'll work just as well. And then there's using a mobile device or any sort of app that can get the Merge app on it. And there's a bunch of different apps that work with the Merge Cube. One of them is called Moment AR. And when you hover your phone or device over the cube, when you look through the screen, it changes the different sides of the cube to have different things. So Merge Cube, it could be like I'm holding a heart or I'm holding the solar system. In this case, with Moment AR, it's holding these different characters that are similar to what's that movie, Beth, from Pixar?
Oh,
Uh,
the emotions one.
yeah. Like with it's not an in and out in
Inside Out. Inside Out.
Inside Out. Yeah, Inside Out.
Inside Out.
Whew, yeah. See,
Neither one
our
of us have
kids are
small
older.
kids anymore. We're like searching for that.
So they're not from Pixar, but they're sort of made in that style. And so there's angry and there's sad and there's upset. And then you turn the merge cube and you can interact with these different characters in a very tactile, fun way to, again, explore what these emotions are and what they mean.
Awesome. Awesome. So again, lots of different resources within here, and I highly recommend checking out this wheel. It's actually an interactive wheel from Castle to look through that more.
All right, Beth, this is the one that I thought I might jump out and show. So here we are sort of talking about recognizing emotions. Well, one strategy that I don't see used very often, this is why we put it in this video, is to talk about more, is we maybe like make our own faces and show with our own, but learners can do this with an avatar and make different faces. So Beth, if you wouldn't mind,
Yep.
I'm going to hit my share button here, and I'm going to jump over and I'm going to share sound, and I'm going to share my screen just to show you what this looks like. So this particular tool is called Hero Forge. One of the reasons I like to show it is because notice that I'm not logged in. So just on a website, heroforge.com, I can do all this without a login, don't have to worry about data privacy and all that kind of stuff. It gives you this generic character like this. And then when you click on the pose button over here on the left, there are, you can choose face, so pose, face, and then there's all these different emotions that you can explore. So let's say I was telling a story or we were reading a story and we're like, how do you think this person feels right now? Sure, you can invite people to make faces with their own face, but they might not be able to see themselves in a mirror or recognize that, or maybe that's an option for some. And then they could jump over to their Chromebook or computer or whatever, or do this down the interactive whiteboard and say, oh, I think they're feeling, well, Beth, you just said like sad is, can we be more nuanced than sad? They're feeling shocked right now. And oh, look at their face move when they're feeling shocked. So, and then just to zoom out a little bit, you can then take a screenshot and take this character, put them in different poses as well, but then you can then paste them into some sort of story. Like we had talked about Book Creator in a previous video or in like a reading video. But anywhere, Google Slides, wherever, you can put these images if you want to. You don't have to take a screenshot. You could just do it in the moment to explore these different feelings. Pretty cool, right, Beth?
I love that. I love the while I'm switching us back over to if you want to, if you stop sharing yours, I will grab us back. While I'm switching us back over, I think that would be like an awesome tool to use in conjunction with something like the How I Feel app, because you can use that like to talk about emotions, but maybe you're not quite sure what a particular emotion really looks like. And so then you could go back into this and say, hey, could we make a face that maybe we think looks a bit like that emotion? So love that idea. Love that idea.
And like you said, Beth, part of it is recognizing other people's emotions. So what do you think this character's feeling right now? You know, when you see a face that is in this certain expression, couldn't help but to self-reflect on it.
Yeah, awesome.
Oh, Beth, we didn't put a Bitmoji in here because my picture's already on here.
Yep.
My sad face here. I'm a Buffalo Bills fan. The Buffalo Bills have never won a Super Bowl. That's my son when he was younger. Now he's in college, but he grew up, we raised him as a Buffalo Bills fan. I mean, he had his choice, Beth. He could have been anything, but he wanted to be a Buffalo Bills fan. And it's been heartbreaking because they've never won, right? And they always lose like in the playoffs. So there's our picture of us going to a game in the stands, super excited, but they did not win the game. And so this sort of image evokes an emotion like, oh, that kid is sad, right? And so here we can tell stories and share stories and videos where we can again, invite students to, or invite learners to label emotions or ask what people are feeling, put it in sort of a comic strip way where we can have these thought bubbles above us and say, well, what do you think they're thinking right now? What would the dad say to comfort the child? What would you say in this situation? Or what do you think the child is saying? And they give them experiences so that when they're in real time situations, they have some practice around, oh, well, here's something where I can say when I see my friend is being sad or feeling sad, or here's something I can say when I'm feeling an emotion or I'm feeling sad, you know?
Yeah, I love it. And I did want to just point out to folks, on many of our slides, you're going to see different sample tools for consideration. We've got book creator, Edpuzzle, or Google Gemini Storybook, but you're also going to see generative AI, with the idea that on a lot of these strategies, you could go into whatever your preferred generative AI tool is. And I'm thinking with this one, you could upload a picture, or you could create a picture and then have students be able to use the generative AI to talk about the feelings and emotions that somebody is having in this particular situation. So I just wanted to kind of point that out as you're seeing generative AI mentioned throughout this presentation.
Beth, I want to take a pause here for a second. Just go back for the previous slide to lead into this one. Everyone's going to love this, you especially. So at the time of this recording, it was sort of the beginning of the school year. A few weeks ago, I was in a session where it was all the brand new teachers in special education come to an auditorium, and they meet with some of the supervisors and specialists and the director, and they have a moment where there's these people up on the stage as like a panel, and the new teachers are asking the veteran teachers, questions, hey, this is going to be my first real IEP. What kind of things should I be aware of or do, those sorts of things. But a theme, I just sort of stood in the background. I wasn't one of the people on the panel. One of the themes that came out that were the new special ed teachers were nervous about, Beth, was behavior. We hear behaviors off the charts since the pandemic. We're nervous about classroom management and helping kids stay focused on what they're doing. And there's a whole sense, multiple questions of the same ilk around behavior. And everyone who responded to it was all about controlling the behavior. There's people you can turn to that have learned how to control behavior, or how can teach kids how to follow along with the tasks that we're asking them to do. And you can imagine it was things like incentive charts and things like that. And what nobody said, and I was one of those moments, like I wasn't the person on stage, so I don't know if I can raise my hand and grab the mic, so I didn't say anything. But I wish, right? Here's what I wish. I get to say it now during this video to you and to everyone else, was we could teach them, we could teach people strategies so we don't have to control the behavior, right? We can teach them these sort of what happens when you act this way or you behave in a certain way. There's consequences. And that leads me to this next story, Beth. I wish we had talked about it more. I wish more people talked about it more. So here's another practical, let me dial that down to the next slide, which is, my wife is assistant principal, Beth, Melissa, right? She comes home from school 4 days ago, and she goes, "Hey, Chris, I got a kid that is spitting. Let's brainstorm. What can we do? What kind of tech, what kind of stuff can we help with?" I'm like, "What do you mean? Well, what stuff? That? Why is the kid spitting? Like, is he angry and frustrated? Because that was right. That's what I went to. I was thinking, I'm angry at you and I don't want to do, so I'm going to spit. When I was a kid, it was throw my glasses, right? I didn't know what to do, so I'd throw my glasses. This kid is spitting." She's like, no, that's not it. He thinks it's funny. He thinks like, oh, when I spit, people are going to laugh. For some reason, he thinks it's hilarious. Okay. So we brainstorm strategies. Again, there could be a behavior thing. Let's count how many times he spits. And look, good job not spitting, right? Like, it could be that. And maybe that's a part of it. But again, to my point, what if we taught him that spitting people don't like it and that it's gross and that it turns people off and it makes people sad. And the way we would teach them is through maybe a storybook. Sure, there's songs too. If we go back to the reading video that we made, there's asuno.com where we sing a song, and we did make a song about not spitting. We did that over there too. But that brings me to this tool, which we also made. And again, Beth, I apologize, but if you'll allow me to share the screen one more time,
Yeah.
I'm going to show you really quickly the book we made in Google Gemini. So Google Gemini, now this is the pro version of Google Gemini. So usually in these videos and in these, we talk about free stuff. This one is not free. But what Google Gemini is, hold on, right here, is there's over here on the left when you go into Gemini. So I'm logged in with my school account.
You're showing the Hero Forge still.
Oh, I'm sorry. One more time.
And just while you're looking for that, and Google Gemini is a generative AI tool. It is the Google version of ChatGPT or Microsoft Copilot. And then this is a resource that is a part of Google Gemini.
Exactly. And in the pro version over here, there's something called gems. Gems are sort of, you can program your own little bot, if you will. Think of that. And so one of the pre-made gems that they have is called Storybook. And when you go over to Storybook, it does exactly what it says. You can see I've made 3 here. One is Sprock's Sputtering Situation. But there's Pip's Big Day is a ferret going through the sequence of his morning routine. So when kids are learning their morning routine or whatever, they're reading a storybook about how to do that. In this case, for this particular situation where a student was spitting, I asked my wife, well, what does the kid like? And he's like, well, he likes this robot TV show. I was like, well, I don't know that I can find the robot TV show, but I can make a story about a robot that spits. And so you could see the prompt here is create an 8-page storybook about a young robot who is learning not to spit on people. And so we're not going to read the whole storybook, Beth, but you can see it sort of instantly generated a story. I could have given more details about reading level and all sorts of stuff, but the story really goes through 8 pages of this little robot spits oil, and that's his friend that he spit on. He thought it was funny, but look, she's upset with him. And he doesn't like that. Look, he tries it again at a park, spits on a little kid. That kid is sad. And by the end, his robot parent tells him, yeah, people don't like it when you spit on them. Maybe there's other ways you can be friends with them. If you show that you like somebody, don't spit on them. Maybe offer them something to do together, like go plant something, and then by the end, they're friends, right? So even if you don't have, well, Chris, Beth, I don't have Google Gemini, how could you make something like this either with kids in Google Slides or in PowerPoint or Book Creator or any other Canva, any other
Lesson Picks.
Lesson Picks, exactly. It'd be an awesome tool. Long story short, tell stories to teach emotions, right?
Excellent. Awesome. All right, let's reshare our screen. Okay, so we talked about using stories to talk about emotions or to talk about situations where behaviors and outcomes are important. Another thing that we can do, and storybooks, I love that idea, like storybooks. Storybooks is just something that we do. We know that it is of high value for so many reasons to read with children and to give them lots of books. Another really high value activity for so many reasons is playing games, right? Games are super engaging. We can use them academically and just for fun, but they provide an opportunity for turn taking, and games generally have predictable outcomes. And so it's a very safe, easily understandable, as long as a student understands, as long as that learner understands the rules of a particular game. It's a way that we can really work on relationship building. How do we interact with someone else? That's that reciprocity. This is your turn. This is my turn. That's part of the rules of the game. And a lot of students that we work with may find comfort in something with predictable rules and outcomes, right? So we know we go back and forth between the players in the game of who's taking a turn. We have things like sequencing. What happens first? What happens next? What happens last with that? Again, there's predictability with that. Somebody knows that we start playing a game, things happen, and there may be a winner at the end, right? We have to go through something, and we can use language and talk about that. There's predictable rules generally in most games. There's certain rules that you follow. If you're playing Go Fish, you're going to get so many cards. You're going to ask somebody for a card. You're going to put a card down or take a card from somebody else. We can explain those rules and they can be consistent. That consistency is a part of how learners regulate their emotions and gain self-regulation or co-regulation skills. Games have a beginning, middle, and an end. It's most, right? We won't talk about, Dungeons and Dragons, which can go on forever and ever and ever. Yet. Okay, we won't talk about Dungeons and Dragons with this. But many games have a beginning, a middle, and an end. When all the cards are laid out, when somebody has a certain combination of cards, when somebody gets to the end of the game board, we know that that is the end of it. And these predictable outcomes can decrease anxiety because we know what's going to happen. We all get anxious about the big unknown, but learners in particular. And we're not available for learning when we don't know, when we can't predict what the outcome of a learning activity is going to be. And you know what? Games are just fun. That boosts serotonin, that boosts mood about how everybody is feeling. So look at ways that you can incorporate games into the learning activities that you are doing. And again, in terms of, well, we don't do SEL in my school district, you can do learning games that focus on any academic content and build in all of these great relationship building, perspective taking, turn taking types of activities with your learners.
Beth, just one other comment I got about games. Well, no, this is perfect. This is a perfect segue. Is that many games, if you ask most adults our age, and you said name 10 games, the majority of games they're going to mention will be just like you said. It's sort of Beth versus Chris. Like we're going to play. There's a competition where it's somebody's a winner at the end. But there's been a trend over the last 10, 15 years where it's Beth and Chris versus the game, where we're working collaboratively and we win or lose as a team versus, or maybe the game wins, right? There's scenario cards and we're going to play. So there's tons of different ones, but I would invite people to search for those. Or what are some collaborative games where people work together to solve a problem or to win the game? And those, I just think they're just not amplified enough, which again, why I wanted to bring them up here. And this brings us to this, is that so often we're working together where kids are playing together to win a game. Like in this particular image, this is, we had done an Xbox pilot in our school, and there's something called the Kinect camera, but there was a camera that faced out and the kids could then interact with it. And they would, in this particular, they had to jump at the same time to use a river raft going down the, follow this raft down a stream or a river. And all this communication emerges where they're talking about ready, set, go. When are you going to jump? Those sorts of things. So this sort of collaborative experience, again, helps people realize like that you're not alone, that you can rely on your friends, that they're relying on you. And all of that is just, again, for what education is meant to do. When you eventually leave school and you're working with in the field, chances are you're not going to be working alone. You're going to be with other people. The more minutes you get to experience this sort of collaborative of endeavors, the more minutes you have to go, okay, this is how I interact with other people. And just a real quick side note about like screen time. It often gets a bad rap, and I think we would invite people to look deeper into screen time and just say, well, what are you doing on the screen, right? If you are if you're sitting scrolling, there's still something maybe happening depending on what you're reading. Many times when it comes to games, kids are on their screens talking to other kids, brainstorming or problem solving, figuring out a strategy, how they're going to attack the problem that they're on the screen with. So it's a more layered and nuanced thing than just like, well, you're on a screen, you know. And that's brings me right to the quote there of my son was like, you know, I play a lot of video games, but I do it with my friends and my family. And it's a way of socially connecting that otherwise I'd be sort of isolated and I wouldn't otherwise connect with them.
I'm going to add one more thing about games in general, is that we can lean into, through games, we can lean into students' passions and preferences, into those things that they like. If a student is overwhelmed by a large group game experience, set up a one-to-one, like with just a 2-student game, right? If a student loves a particular, they love trains or they love cats or whatever it is, find a game or create a game that leans into that has that as the characters, that has that as a scenario that they're using. So lean into the preferences and passions of students through gaming to help facilitate these successful relationship building, social emotional learning experiences with them.
Well, that is a perfect segue to what comes next. All right, Beth, let's play. So you and I'm going to tell a story and you'll be the character in the story, shall we?
Okay.
All right, so here's what happens. You are walking through the woods, just on a typical walk. You do this actually quite frequently. You walk through the woods. Suddenly you hear a childlike voice off into the woods crying for help. And you look off to the right and you see that there's a cave and that the sound is coming from this cave embedded into the hillside that you're walking by. And then you hear a loud growl that is sort of drowns out the cry. What do you do, Beth?
Oh gosh, I don't know, right? Am I going to run away because I'm scared too? Am I going to call for help because I'm too frightened to help this person? Or am I going to be super brave and I'm not worried about that growl and I'm just going to go in there and I'm going to help that child? I don't know. I have to think about it.
Now, Beth, let's pretend it wasn't actually you. What if you were a heroine in a story with your armor on horseback and you heard that scream? What this hero do?
Oh, this hero is going to go right in there and it is going to defeat whatever is making that growl, and it is going to go rescue that child.
Awesome. What we just did there is, if I just then said, Beth, all right, roll a 20-sided dice and let's see how that turns out for you. If you get higher than a 6, something good happens, right? What we just did is we played a role-playing game. It's a stripped-down version of Dungeons and Dragons, which will bring us to the next slide, which is this idea of role-playing games. You put someone in the idea of playing a role in any sort of scenario. Usually there is some sort of game master that sort of dictates the action that happens and asks the questions or sets up the scenario. And then the people that are playing the game react to it. And so this does have a little bit of a less of those predictable outcomes, preparing people for that more open-ended experience that the world has to offer. But this invites kids to try out different things, different scenarios. I'm going to take a different action here and let's see how it turns out in a safe experience. And so, I jokingly, we were talking about Dungeons and Dragons earlier, but this is these role-playing experiences. There's all sorts of games like Dungeons and Dragons. There's the different scale up and down. The general heart of it is just you're telling a collaborative story and you are having this shared experience where you have a beginning, middle, and end as you share the story. And then, of course, like you said, Dungeons and Dragons can keep going on. It can you can say, well, this is the end of the story, but here's the hook to bring us back next time and keep going.
And for anybody that's having a hard time relating to a role-playing game, just think about Oregon Trail, right? If you're old enough, I'm old enough to remember using Oregon Trail as an educator, but you might just be old enough to remember playing Oregon Trail as a learner. And that was a role-playing game where we were taking on an experience. It wasn't a fantasy, it was grounded in history, right? So just to kind of put that into perspective.
And then the next couple of slides are actual images, Beth, of kids doing this. So what's you mentioned earlier, an adult or an educator facilitating sort of the thought process, or helping someone through the thought process of, regulating their emotions, or taking what action will I take. And it's really hard to see, but off on the very far left, sort of in the right in the middle of the screen, you can see the toe of a shoe of somebody. That toe of the shoe of somebody way off to the side is the speech language pathologist of this role-playing after school experience. So here we are, a bunch of kids sitting around a table after school, all different backgrounds. The student in the foreground there with the sort of beigeish yellow shirt, you can see he's got a screen in front of him. That's the dungeon master who's sort of setting the scenario, and then all the other kids around are interacting with the story, saying, well, here's what my character would do, here's what my character would do. The speech therapist off on the side, some of these kids have pragmatic language skills that they're working on, pragmatic language goals that they're working on. In the speech therapy session, she has prompted them with, well, okay, well, what would you do in this scenario? What do you think is going to happen in the story? And then hangs out in the background, as a sort of listening to the story, facilitating, going around whispering in ears, giving people little strategies here and there, pulling somebody every once in a while if they need to talk about how are you feeling about what's happening in the story right now. But again, it's a safe place where it's you're interacting with your friends, you're problem solving. It's creative, right? It's you're communicating. It just sort of hits all the facets of what we hope that education is all about.
Love it.
And it's so naturally inclusive, Beth. Like, this is, again, look at all these different kids here. I put smiley faces for anonymity over them, right? But they're actually all smiling in this picture if you took the smiley faces away, right? It's one of the things about games just in general, right, Beth, is that they transcend every culture. Like, every culture in the history of humankind has played some sort of game, right? And so it's... everyone likes playing games, right? There may be different versions of games. So again, lean into this idea of gameplay and role playing. Even if you don't have an after school club, maybe this is your time. Maybe this is it. Or even if you can't do it after school, how can you infuse gaming into what you're doing in your educational experiences already?
Okay. So we've talked about a lot of things that maybe take quite a bit of organization and planning and resources and materials. But there is something really simple that we can do and that we can teach learners to do to support our emotional regulation. And that is just using breathing techniques. And so there are so many gifts and much more that are out there that you can simply pull up. So like this one that's saying inhale, exhale, and let's everybody just take a moment right there on your screen. Just follow that prompt on there. Let's go with the inhale. Inhale and exhale. That can really help students focus, stop in the moment. This is something we can do pretty much anywhere in any situation to support learners. And it's something that they can easily take with them with very little. There's resources where you learn to breathe on your fingers, right? Where it's a 5-finger breathing activity. They just need what they bring with them. There are a lot of tools out there that can help you support that. There's the breath app on, it might be, I'm worrying if I'm missing an E on there, but it's okay. Like breathe instead of breath. The breath app on iOS, there's My Life, which was formerly Stop, Breathe, Think. And then I said, Giphies, Giphy.com. You can add a GIF or a GIF. I never know how to say that word. You can add a GIF or a GIF into any slide deck that you have. You can pull it up so easily. So something so simple, so easy, but that can be really, really impactful for our learners. So a lot of times we have difficulty interpreting tone in written expression. I mean, how many times have you received a text or an email and you were like, am I being scolded, or am I being like, are they being sarcastic, or like, I don't know how to interpret this. Or how many times have you written something and you've gotten feedback, or your learners have gotten feedback that, well, somebody's going to misinterpret the way you're saying because of the way of what they're feeling in it. When we have written expression, we don't have faces or tone of voice to help interpret. So there's a really cool tool out there. There's a few different tools that are out there that you can do this with, but the ones I'm talking about are AI related. Goblin Tools AI has two tools within it that can work on tone in written expression. The first one is the judge, where it's, am I misreading? You can either type something in that's what you are planning to say, or you can pull in something that somebody else has written and say, what's the tone? And it's going to tell you, well, this is, maybe somebody's going to find this too terse or too short, or this is too flowery and too nice, and you're trying to tell somebody to do something important, right? The other one is called the formalizer. This is something I think that students in particular, learners in particular, may use very casual language in their writing, and that is not the appropriate tone, perhaps, for academic writing. And so the formalizer tool will help them tweak something to make it better suit the tone that would be appropriate for the situation. You can also do this in ChatGPT by saying, please make this formal, please make this informal, make this appropriate for a 16-year-old peer, make this appropriate for a 5-year-old child. So there's lots of different ways that you can do this. And again, we all have had opportunities that we misinterpret tone in written expression. So another strategy that I just want to mention, and I think this might be the last strategy that we're talking about. Okay, so implementing equitable calling strategies. How is that a social emotional learning, right? You may have been told as an educator that you need to make sure that you are implementing equitable calling strategies, that you are giving every learner an opportunity to participate and answer questions. But you've got those students that are, me, I need to be the one that answers a question, and I will be the first to say I am that person. My learning style is I like to ask questions, I like to answer questions, my participation supports my learning. But you've got the flip side is you've got other students that are never going to raise their hand, that either are anxious about it, that are feeling like they are don't have anything important to contribute, are worried about their ability to express themselves. When we implement equitable calling strategies, we can make sure that everybody feels safe in answering. That's a very first thing, that it's not just going to be the kid that knows the answers is going to do the answering. And that we have ways of supporting each other. So when we use equitable calling strategies, we can give kids a warning. And there's lots of different tools that are out there. There's spinners, there's equitable calling. You can just go totally low tech with this, with equitable calling sticks that have, craft sticks that have a kid's name on it, they keep in a can. What makes this socially, emotionally validating for students is that they don't have to sit in fear and anticipation. Is she going to call me next? Is she going to call me next? She can call me next. We can give them strategies to go with this, that you can pull that student stick and say, I'm letting you know in advance, in 3 more friends, it's going to be your turn to share something. So this gives you time to think about it. It gives the augmentative communication user time to formulate a message, right? You tell them what you're going to be asking them in advance. Like, here's your question, but I'm going to go through 3 other people for something before I come back to you. So we can set them up for success that way. We can also make sure that friends know, that our students, our learners know that they have the option to phone a friend, to ask for assistance, to look something up, right? So we don't have to make this, when we call on students and make sure that we're calling on all students, we can ground this in ways in decreasing anxiety and making sure that they have the time that they need to formulate answers and resources to find the answers, or to simply say, I don't know the answer to that question. maybe somebody else does. So all of those things while still encouraging participation from everybody in the class so that we're not losing that student that's just sitting there in the back tuning out because they don't want to participate in this. All right, next steps. Chris, go for it.
Yeah, well, I think the next steps are to reflect on this. I mean, I think, like we said, a theme about this video is how do you teach these things with intentionality, right? How do we do this in a meaningful, purposeful way? Like you said, Beth, without even calling it social emotional learning, it's just helping kids get through, make good relationships, have positive outcomes, have the ability to self-reflect on their actions after they've taken them, those sorts of things.
Be available for learning, right?
Exactly.
Just be available for learning.
Yeah, yeah. So one of these strategies here that we talked about are other ones that maybe are in the book or that you heard of that that really work for you. Take a moment to reflect on it. I mean, they can pause the video and reflect on it, Beth. I mean,
They can pause. You can pause the video and think about: is there one thing that you heard today in this video that you're going to go forward with? That you're going to be, I'm going to start an after-school games club, or I'm going to use games to explore topics to make it more fun, engaging, and enjoyable, or I can just stop and have my students breathe, teach them some breathing exercises.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. All right, we have this newsletter. I think these slides go at the end of every of the videos. So, but we have this newsletter that we would invite you to sign up with. We really have to be better about using our newsletter. But if you sign up, you also get these questions inclusive educators ask PDF, sort of infographic that we have that could be to go up in any of the learning spaces that you are in, or share with parents, those sorts of things. So check that out.
And by the way, this free poster that you get includes the important questions that inclusive educators ask that we have in our card deck. And so just by signing up the newsletter, you get those questions for free in this poster that you can display. Again, this is a 9-part series. So please make sure to come back and check out the other content areas. We do recommend that you watch the Inclusive Mindset video first. It's going to frame everything else that we are doing. But we encourage you to then select the content area that is most applicable to you and your particular needs. So we'll see you next time.
Thank you, Beth, for making it so not stressful and less anxious for me.
Thank you, Chris. I feel the exact same way.
Bye, everybody.
Thank you for joining us. Are you a New Jersey educator looking for support or professional development tailored to your district's AT needs? We offer free, customized training and coaching for NJ teachers, paraprofessionals, and families. From hands-on workshops to individual classroom support and small group facilitation, we're here to help. Visit us at atcenter.tcnj.edu to learn more. Have a question? Contact us at atcenter@tcnj.edu. Please like this video, leave a comment, and subscribe for more content on all things assistive technology.